Martin Geisler is here with the Sunday show at 10 o'clock and talking politics right now on BBC One Scotland with Sophie Raworth.
As the war in Ukraine enters a new phase, British politics has been focused on Boris Johnson and Partygate. Will the Prime Minister be able to persuade the politicians and the country that it's time to move on? Good morning. Labour has been piling the pressure on Boris Johnson over lockdown parties. I'll ask the party's leader, Sir Keir Starmer, if he's ignoring bigger issues facing the country. The Conservative Party chairman, Oliver Dowden, will be here after a wounding week for the Prime Minister as more Tories openly question his future. What next for Ukraine as the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken travels to Kyiv? His spokesman tells me President Putin won't win the war.
Our Ukrainian partners won the Battle of Kyiv. Right now, they are winning the battle for Ukraine.
And the leader of the SNP at Westminster, Ian Blackford, also joins me live. Plus, Kelly MacDonald and Matthew McFadyen have been telling me about their new film dramatising the most daring and far-fetched deception of World War II. And here to review the papers are Piers Morgan, who's launching his new TV show tomorrow, and the economist Stephanie Flanders. But first, the news with Ben Thompson.
Sophie, thanks very much. Good morning. Voters in France will choose today whether to re-elect Emmanuel Macron as president or replace him with a far-right candidate, Marine Le Pen. The polls suggest Mr Macron is the favourite to win, but it's expected to be a much closer race than their election runoff 5 years ago. At least 8 people, including a 3-month-old baby, have died following missile strikes in the southern Ukrainian city of Odessa. After the latest shelling, President Zelensky announced that the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, will arrive in Kyiv today as the country enters its 3rd month of war with Russia. The Japanese Coast Guard says 9 people have been found after a tour boat went missing off the northern island of Hokkaido. It's not clear whether those found are alive or dead. 26 people were on board the boat when the crew reported getting into difficulty yesterday. Rescue efforts are ongoing. And the British boxer Tyson Fury has retained his WBC heavyweight title with victory over Dillian Whyte at Wembley Stadium. It was watched by 94,000 people. The referee stopped the contest in the 6th round after Fury knocked down his opponent with a right uppercut. You're up to date. That's all the news from me. The next on BBC One is at 1 o'clock. Sophie, back to you.
Ben, thank you very much. Let's have a look at this morning's front pages now, starting with the Sunday Times. Ukraine pleas for weapons were rejected. 4 years is their main story. And there as well, President Macron as the French go to the polls today. The Observer, the Prime Minister should go sooner rather than later, say top Tory MPs. And also a story about the Ukrainian refugee plan, which the Observer says is designed to fail, according to an insider. The Sunday Telegraph leads with a BBC story. BBC guilty of xenophobia over Rwanda refugee deal. That is the claim by the Home Secretary Priti Patel. And also a big picture there of Sophie Wessex, a sparkling welcome for her in St Vincent and Grenadines, it says. The Sunday People, Rishi in hot water again. This is about plans for heating his swimming pool at home. And the Mail on Sunday, finally, Piers Morgan. He's there.
That's a good headline.
Yeah, he's there. And underneath it, get back to the office, which is what Piers Morgan is doing, sort of, or face the sack. This is the call to civil servants who are refusing to return to Whitehall or risk losing their jobs. It says, well, with me to review the papers, Piers Morgan, of course, and the head of Bloomberg Economics, Stephanie Flanders. Good morning to both of you. Stephanie, let's start with you. We're going to talk about, there's stories about Boris Johnson and about Keir Starmer in the papers this morning. Let's start with the prospect of a general election next year, even.
Intrigued by this in the Mail on Sunday. Boris plots early general election to see off his rivals. I mean, obviously, this, as you can see in the headlines today, the last week, opinion within the Tory party is shifting radically against the Prime Minister, to a feeling that how long could this possibly continue? The prospect of an investigation into Partygate going on for months and months and months, and a desperate desire to just draw a line under all of it. And this is just a nice reminder, potentially from Number 10, that, well, actually a general election might happen quite soon, sooner than you think. And if you were having an election tomorrow, is there really anyone else who could fight for the Tories better than Boris Johnson? That lack of an obvious successor is probably the strongest thing he has in his favour at the moment.
But isn't that incredible that the Tories don't have a single potential option for a Prime Minister who's just become the first leader of this country in history to effectively be convicted of a criminal offence? I mean, it's just unbelievable. But we are where we are. Boris is this slippery eel. That's why I would never bet money on him not being able to somehow come through this. But you do feel like there is a building jungle drum amongst the Tories, and they ultimately will decide this about his future. And I can predict a very messy scenario coming up very fast for him. More fines on Partygate, almost certainly coming his way. The May local elections, if he does get the shellacking that some people think he'll get, plus surging inflation and people really feeling the pinch in their pocket, I think that triple whammy is going to be potentially deadly for Boris Johnson. But this idea that the Conservative Party can't find anybody else than a leader who is so apparently damaged, whose integrity has been so shattered, I find pretty breathtaking, actually. And it does prompt the question, well, what's wrong with you? Where are the rest of the candidates?
Or they're just looking down the track at a pretty unpleasant couple of years. I mean, we know that the cost of living
Which
squeeze.
actually, interestingly, isn't really covered at all in the papers today, is it?
But it's a given that the UK is now really, fighting this cost of living battle, and I think it will be. And we have a story actually in the Sunday Times talks about Colin Rollington and Michael Thrasher talk about how the cost of living is absolutely number one when they're going into these council elections. But